When you're designing a character, there's a lot to consider. Having colors that work well together but still have this character stand out and not fade into the background, a strong silhouette that makes your character easily recognizable, something easy enough to draw again and again for an animation or comic, having your character's nature be readable through shapes, showing bits of your character's past and personality, and having them look like they fit in the world that you created. If you're like me, you probably didn't know what you were doing at first, and when you learned the rules, you were even more overwhelmed. It's a lot to balance and focus on, and if you're really like me, you kept the same bad design for years before thinking, I should probably fix that. In this video, I'm going to break down what I've learned from making bad designs while improving the outdated look of my character. So if you need help turning your old design into something amazing, then there are people on YouTube who are way more qualified to help you. But if you want some tips and tricks from one dummy to another, then you're in the right place. Okay, first things first, critique your old bad design and understand why it's not really doing its job. Instead of looking at the whole list, find what your design is doing the absolute worst at. I doubt that it fails at every single design factor. Just choose what most needs your focus. If you're designing something from scratch, understand that what you're usually the worst at and put your focus on that. Lucen is a character from what I consider to be my main story. It's a drama romance that's sort of post-apocalyptic. Every human on the planet has died from nuclear war, and hundreds of years later, different races based on the classifications of animals have taken our place. They're more suited to the earth, they take better care of it, but some races aren't really allowed to mix because of ongoing conflict between them.
Grow the up. You first.
This story has two protagonists, Lucen and Micah, who are from different classes. While Lucen is this reptilian punk without a filter, Micah is more of a southern gentle giant from the mammal class, so they clash in very fun ways. They eventually fall for each other and even more conflict ensues. My problem with Lucen's design is that he's supposed to be from this reptilian race of people, but you can't tell that at all by looking at him. He looks like a generic fantasy OC. Swimming instead of walking to places is very common in his people's cities, and buildings are sometimes completely surrounded by water, but his clothing doesn't look suited to that life at all. So I know I need something that looks water resistant. I need elements that heavily emphasize his reptilian nature while keeping his pretty boy appeal for the sake of the romance. And I want to consider shape language and his silhouette since I didn't the first time. It seems like a lot, but really my problems are in silhouette, shape language, and world building. Nailing it down to just a few things makes it less overwhelming, and once you understand what doesn't work, you'll know what you need to play around with. One mistake I made a lot when I was younger is trying out different things on one single sketch. So if I was trying to find my character's color palette, I'd have just one sketch or one drawing that I was swatching them out on. What you should be doing is copying and pasting that sketch or drawing and trying out multiple color palettes on each one. This goes beyond just color. It applies to outfits or hair or anything that you're undecided on. It allows you to see and keep all the ideas you have for whatever element you're trying to figure out. It also helps keep you in the mindset of, this is just a concept, this is not my final product. That's an important mindset to hold on to if you want a design that you're happy with that does its job. You need to understand that you have to try out different concepts. You don't want to lock yourself in too much on one new design. It's really easy to get stuck on something and see it as the character design, like you finally got it, it's there, but there's probably something you'd like even more if you explored other potential options. With this character, I tried different color palettes, different variations of his outfit, different ways to draw his teeth. So be open-minded. That being said, be a little stubborn too. Have some things that you know for sure that you don't want to try. Maybe these are things related to the plot or the character's personality. For example, I refuse to try any short hairstyles on Lucen because I know that he loves his hair and he would never cut it short unless he's going through it and having like a mental breakdown.
Cut the show. I'm done. Take me off.
Having some things that you know for sure you don't want to try can make it easier. If everything is up for debate, it's just more for you to figure out. I used to think of character design as something that should just take a few hours to do because that's the way it is for illustrations. So I would put a lot of pressure on myself to get a good design in one sitting. If that's how your process works, I mean, go for it, but I think character design works better when you take at least a few days to figure it out, or a week, or even a month. Don't strain yourself to get the perfect design in one afternoon. If you're giving yourself proper time to try different concepts, then it will take longer than just a few hours. When you start sketching and trying out new ideas, don't put too much pressure to get the perfect design. Understand that this is a journey to get to your final product instead of a single stop. There may be something that hurts the design, but it's something that you really like. I felt the same way about Lucen's skin tone. Even though these colors have better contrast and make him more interesting to look at, this is the color that I usually imagine when I picture the character. It's not as good, but it holds so much nostalgia that I really wanted to keep it. With stuff like this that makes the character design worse or just not as good, even if it's nostalgic or just something you like, I think it's best to get rid of it. Even though the new colors feel like a big change for my brain, I know that I'll get used to it and that it's worth it. Look at other characters that maybe have similar jobs or personalities or circumstances to your character, especially if there's something in your design that you're trying to convey but you're not really sure how to do it without contradicting something else. For example, maybe your character likes to show a lot of skin but they live in a very cold environment. Somebody probably already figured out a way to get around that, and you can take notes and inspiration from their design. Consider having multiple sources of inspiration so you don't end up pulling everything off of one character and copying it. I looked at Jinx a little bit for inspiration because she and Lucen are similar in the way that they're mechanical-minded people, and they're both very scrappy and troubled. Jinx like way more than him, but still. I wasn't sure how I should position Lucen's goggles because of the hair in his face, but I noticed that Jinx has a pretty long bang of hair in her face too, and instead of pushing her goggles up onto her head like I was thinking and messing up her hair and making them harder to pull back down, she just pushes them up to her forehead. It's a pretty simple solution, but one I still needed help figuring out, so big problem or small, don't hesitate to look at other characters. Here's what I did to improve on the elements my old design failed at, starting off with shape language. Lucen is a clever and sometimes manipulative person with a very dark past in which he was the villain through other people's perspectives. But he's still a good person. He's one of our protagonists and someone we're supposed to relate to and root for. To make sure he feels approachable and kind, despite all the people he's killed, I added more circles and round lines. The sharp angles and triangles are there for that more clever and manipulative side. Finally, to represent his strength and reliability, there are more rectangles and straight lines in his final design. I also put some asymmetry in his design, which can help communicate chaos. Maybe your character just doesn't have it together, something is off in an unstable, scary way, or a quirky way. I think it's both in his case.
I can't remember what happened in September.
World building was probably my weakest area. His old clothing looked like it would get completely soaked if he even tried to hop in the water, specifically his pants. This time I tried to consider their overall shape and texture so they would look firm and waterproof. I did a lot of different things to fix his plainness. I gave him a different colored underbelly like crocodiles have, webbed hands, sharper teeth, a scale pattern, and a crocodile-like tail. If you're struggling with world building or a backstory, brainstorm and write down some elements that convey what you're trying to get across. A lot of the stuff that I added is just stuff that I thought about and brainstormed. And lastly, for his silhouette, I just concentrated on more confident lines and leaving more empty space. Look at your character's silhouette and understand what element is blending in together with another, and give those elements more space from each other. One thing I do like about Lucen's old design is that I did a decent job in making a conventionally attractive character that didn't look human. Lucen is a very flirty person who gets around a lot before he falls in love with Micah. He has doubts about his personality, but never his looks.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to make out with me. I just don't want to be alive.
So being a handsome or pretty boy is very important to the character and his story. And the original design followed through on that. Well, it depends on what part of my art journey you're looking at. Some of the concepts follow through on that, just way too much. But now that I've applied what I've learned so far, I can say that I have a character design that I'm relatively happy with that fits into the story. I'll probably keep reworking it beyond this video, but I'm still happy with it because I see it as an improvement. Again, this took me longer than just one sitting. It took quite a few sittings to figure out. When designing your character, don't forget to think of it as a process. Another part of character design that's pretty important is feedback. So tell me what you think of Lucen's new design in the comments. Did I fix the problems in his design? Did I make it worse? Any criticism would be greatly appreciated. But that is all for now. I hope my advice was at least a little helpful, especially if you're just starting out in character design and want to avoid what I did when I was younger and make the process less overwhelming. Next, I will be redesigning Micah, the second protagonist in the story, who's much less scrappy, much less feral. He also desperately needs me to redesign him. But that is it. I am done talking. I will see you in the next video. Bye.